cool. Well, I need you guys to start making some noise right now. Clapping your hands for the one, the only. Give it up for Michael Dorn.
Hello. How you doing? Amazing. Thanks for coming out. Very cool.
It's so nice to have you here. Thank you for coming.
Nice to be had.
Absolutely. Is this your first time in Raleigh?
I don't think so. I think I've been here before.
Okay.
I think.
You think you've been here?
But it looks so familiar. The guy was driving me from the hotel. I'm like, I've seen this place before, So yeah, I think I have been here.
It all kind of meshes together after a while.
Yeah, it really does after 30
Well, thank you
years.
for being here. It's so nice to have you here, of course. Star Trek fame. Everyone knows you. Your fans are here. What's up, fans? And yeah, it's pretty much going to be a Q&A. They're going to ask you some questions, but I just want to see how you're enjoying your time so far here in Raleigh.
Well, I've only got here last night.
Okay.
And then I saw the hotel and room service person, and then a car, and then here.
Okay.
So if that's Raleigh, I'm having a great time.
So far, so good. You're off to a good start.
If there's more to it, then I don't know.
All right, so let's talk about Star Trek. I mean, that's why we're all here. You're one of the most memorable characters, Worf, and you were the longest-running character. You were in the most episodes and movies. I mean, how does that feel to have that title under your belt?
It still is interesting because I didn't really think about it until a few years ago, and then I kind of went, "Wow, that's kind of cool," It's also a great opportunity for any actor to be part of a huge franchise. I mean, if somebody said, okay, Michael, you can't act anymore, that's it, you're done. I've done 11 years in Star Trek on a TV show and 6 movies. That's a pretty decent, run.
Yeah. It also crossover
for any actor,
Yeah, video games also, cartoons.
Oh, forget about all that other stuff. I mean, that's great, but I'm saying just that alone is more than a lot of actors have an opportunity to do. So.
Well, I must say you're a phenomenal actor, and I say that because your demeanor now as yourself is completely opposite from Worf, who's like mean, aggressive. You're so nice, dude.
I'm a very good actor. The interesting thing is that to hear people say that, it's sort of like that's what actors do. I mean, you don't. I think you'd be in trouble if you actually were the characters you play.
Yeah.
There are some actors over the years that we've known who are those people that they play on.
Yeah.
In the movies.
Either they started that way or maybe they turned into that.
Yeah, exactly. So,
scary.
But thank you very much. That's very nice.
No, absolutely. And I wanted to ask you, in all of your first acting role was in Rocky, is that correct?
It wasn't much of an acting role, but that's that was my first actual kind of paid gig.
Okay, and you were Apollo Creed's bodyguard?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, cool.
Once again, it was just supposed to be I think maybe a 3 or 4 day gig, and it turned into about 3 weeks.
Wow.
Yeah.
And what was that like, that experience for you? That being one of your very first gigs, being on set?
Well, the interesting thing is that the actors were not that well known. So that wasn't, it was like great being there and seeing how it's all done, which was always fantastic. But I started out, I wanted to be a director. And so all the behind the scenes stuff. But the guy that I really was excited to meet was Michael Westmore, who did the makeup, because he did all the makeup for Rocky. And I'm a big movie fan from way back, and so you see the Westmores on just about everything,
right,
in terms of makeup. So it was a real exciting moment, to meet him. And he's a great guy, and we had such a good time.
That's amazing.
Great relationship.
All right, I have one final question of my own before we turn it over to the crowd, because I'm sure there's some people. If you want to start lining up now, by all means, go ahead. With the character Worf, were there any actors or people that you channeled to get into that character, or you just created it all on your own?
I created it all on my own, and I can't take full credit for that, but because the second, or maybe it was early, like the second episode of the first season, I went up to Gene Roddenberry and I said, look, what do you want from this guy? I mean, what do you want him to be? I mean, because all they did was they gave me a sheet of paper with Worf on it, and nobody gave me any sort of guidance as to what they want. There wasn't anything written because the character was, a real afterthought. I mean, it was such an afterthought that where the other actors, it was almost 2 or 3 months of auditioning. Mine was 5 days. I mean, I had one audition, then I had the second callback, and at that callback, I got the job, and they sent me into makeup that day. And then with 2 days later, or 3 days later, I can't remember what it was, I was on the set working. And the other actors, they didn't know who I was. They just said, oh, Klingon, great, And that was how it happened. So,
very, very cool. Well, it's very nice to have you here. Thank you so much for answering my questions. Sure. But now we're gonna go to our first question here. Hi, what's your name and what's your question?
My name is Philip. I'm a big Star Trek fan. My dad introduced me to it a few years ago, and I've been big Trekkie ever since. So I was wondering, which do you like more, Deep Space Nine or Next Generation, and why?
It's got to be Next Generation. We started for a lot of reasons. I mean, we basically were at the forefront of this whole resurgence of Star Trek because everybody was sort of, now you guys can't take over. You can't be who do you think you are, and blah blah blah. And there was a lot of resistance, outside and inside the business. And so we kind of just went through that together. And when you go through that type of thing together, you get very close. And we had a lot of fun. I mean, a lot of fun. Deep Space was great for my character. And I absolutely love the people I work with. I mean, we're still great friends. But nothing like Next Generation.
Cool. Thank you for answering my question.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for your question.
You're
Hi,
welcome.
step up to the mic. What's your name and what's your question?
Hello, my name is Mark. I'm a huge Star Trek fan. It's been a big bonding experience for me and my family. I'm glad you talked a little bit about the beginning of Star Trek and how all that went down. I remember reading online one time how Worf was not planned to be a character in the run of the show. It was just in the pilot. And I think that speaks to your ability that you sold it so well. I wanted to ask you, how did all that go down? How did Worf become a main character on the show? And just as a side note before you answer, I wanted to say that I think that you've done tremendous things for Klingons, and your portrayal of Worf, honestly, just the way that you portrayed him and the culture of Klingons and the way Worf tried to study it has been huge for the lore of Star Trek. I would say on the level of Leonard Nimoy to Vulcan. So thank you for that.
You're welcome. What was the question?
Sorry, I really wanted to say both of those things. I was asking about the beginning of the show. How did Worf get translated from just pilot to the rest of the show?
Actually, there's been a lot of writing and things that people have read over the years, but the absolute truth is that when I got the job, the character was going to be a regular. It was not just in the pilot. It was not, just occasionally. He was a regular because when we did the contract, which is what you got to do when you sign like when you go in for your last audition for the network or for the producers or whatever the case, you have to sign a contract, a full contract, before you do your last audition. And so my contract was 7 out of 13 episodes is what they did. So the first 13 episodes, you were guaranteed 7. You do more, but you were guaranteed 7. And we did 26 episodes a year in those days. So it was 14 out of 26. But as you can tell, Worf did probably, I don't know, 22 or 24 shows. There's a couple that he wasn't in, but for the most part. So the character was always going to be there. I mean, he was there, I mean, in terms of the writers and everybody. But I think what happened was that there was a couple of episodes where it just hit them of Worf's, a contribution to the show. I mean, there was one episode where we were on this planet of Hitler Youth, I call them, because they're all blonde and and beautiful and hi, and I'm like, oh my God, what is? And did you remember that? I don't know if you. It really is 60s. The guys that kind of started our show are 60s guys, and it kind of carried on into the movies. But if you come to an idyllic planet, they're blondes. And I just go, you mean not an Italian in the place, or a Japanese, anything, No. Anyway, but there was a moment that they told me was that when they knew that this character was going to be an integral part was when I hugged this alien and I go, nice planet. And they said that they ran that back in editing over and over, and it got funnier and funnier and funnier. And so that kind of started that. And also the death of Denise Crosby, or Tasha Yar. Once again, none of this was planned. I mean, she really lobbied to get out of the show. She wanted to go on to do other things in her career, and she felt very strongly about it, which I respect. And when they killed her off, I'm sure they were writing the thing and they were like going, oh man, what are we going to do about security? Tasha was this really kind of ballsy, strong, and we got to find somebody that's really strong and really, and I'm sure they went, holy shit, what about Worf? And they go, oh my God, yeah, I'm sure that's the way it happened. And so that's how, it kind of, went from there. But he was always a regular. But as the series went on, I mean, they really found a place for him. Thank you.
Very cool. Thanks for your question. Step on up. What's your name and what's your question?
My name's Ashton, and there's been an announcement of several new Star Trek series. Will you be in any of those, as far as you know?
The new Star Trek series things that they're doing?
Yes.
I have not been asked yet. I'm sure everybody knows that Patrick has been in negotiation.
Right.
So whatever happens, we know there's going to be something.
Okay.
So.
All right, thanks for your question. Hi, what's your name and what's your question?
My name is Maurice. Thank you very much for having me. I think that question leads to my question. When you become a captain and have your own starship? And before you answer that question, one of the things I actually thought was kind of annoying. I am such a big Worf fan. I used to get annoyed when you would say, Captain, should we raise the shield? And he says, not yet, Mr. Worf. I'm like, come on, raise the shields. Did you, as in your character, did you see that to be a little bit repetitive? And like I said, when are you going to get your own ship? Because I would like to see what kind of character a Worf would make as a captain. Thank you.
Thank you. It didn't seem repetitive that I got shot down unless you put it all together in like a montage.
Like a super cut edit.
Then you'll see it happens all the time. But at the time, you're talking about episodes that are days and weeks and months apart, so it really didn't appear that way. And I wrote a script back in 2012 about the Worf show, and it would be how we've perceived Worf up to this point is how he would be as a captain, you know. So that's all I'm going to say about it.
All right, step on up to the mic. What's your name and what's your question?
How you doing? My name is Will. I just wanted you to know that I've been watching you since you were on Chips. I remember when you did that show. But my question is, out of all, and I remember Worf was the captain of the Defiant in First Contact. But out of all of the Star Trek movies that you did, which one was your favorite?
Oh, definitely First Contact. I mean, I think that, you know, I'm a Star Trek fan from way back, so, you know, from the original. And up to that point, my favorite Star Trek was The Wrath of Khan. I always thought that was great, lovely, blah, 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 until we did First Contact. And the way that I know that it's my favorite is that whenever a movie comes on, and I've seen it a million times, and it just happens to come on, like on cable or something like that, I'll go look around and, okay, I'm going to watch this, you know, even though I know everything about it, you know. And The Wrath of Khan was that way, and now First Contact is that way. I'll sit through First Contact whenever I can.
How did you feel about Nemesis? Did you feel a little disappointed the way that ended, or did you think it ended on a good note?
Is Nemesis the last one?
Right.
You know, Brent will say this, and people have said this. They said, wow, isn't it terrible that Data died? And I go, there's another Data. I mean, you know, he didn't really die, you know? I mean, and, but you know, I thought it was, after First Contact, it was a real tough road for them, because they really wanted to expand, and there was a lot of things going on with the show and with the universe, the Star Trek universe. So I thought it wasn't a First Contact, and I wish they had utilized the other actors a lot more than what they did. I think that's what made First Contact a great movie. Yes.
Thank you for your question. Thank you so much. Hi, what's your name? What's your question?
Hey, my name is Damon, and I remember reading up when you were joining Deep Space Nine that you, in order for you to agree to keep doing the makeup for however long that they were going to have you on, that you basically negotiated that Worf got to be the badass that he's supposed to be. So my question is, if makeup was the most strenuous or toll-taking part for you, what was the second most difficult thing?
Now, the makeup was, what happened is that in the negotiations, they didn't write it in the contract, but I had a meeting with the producers, and I said, look, you know, you just have to be cognizant of my makeup time and what I do. You can't just put me in a scene just because Worf should be there, put me in makeup all day, and just do one scene, and then, you know, it just gets to be too much. And so they were very good about that. But that was kind of it. There wasn't anything really strenuous after that. I mean, the acting was wonderful. I got to make out with Terry Farrell and Nicole DeBoer, and that's always good. So, you know, there was nothing strenuous about that, you know. So, thank you.
Thank you.
All righty. Hi, what's your name? Come on up to the mic. And what's your question?
Hi, I'm Matt. Hey, you talked about the potential for, you know, well, they haven't asked you about doing the new Star Trek shows, but what about, have they asked you yet to appear on or direct an episode of the Orville?
No.
No.
They, there was a couple of times that they called about parts, but they were just, you know, kind of sounding me out about stuff, and it didn't work out. on a couple of things. But there was just, one was about scheduling, and the second one was about, Seth is he's very careful about, this is a homage to Star Trek and those shows and science fiction. And he's very careful about having things that are on the nose. And the character Worf or Michael Dorn is kind of on the nose. If you see me in there, it's like, it takes it out of the Orville, and puts it someplace else. And I think he's smart about that. I think he's there was a bunch of people that gave him a bunch of stuff about that I should play that big character guy. And he just went, nope. And I agreed with him. I said, I hear you, it's just too on the nose.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, hi, step on up. What's your name and what's your question?
Hi, I'm Katie, and I was wondering, I know like a lot of times when people do, really iconic things, like Ryan Reynolds took home or stole one of Deadpool's outfits. David Tennant took one of his doctor's suits. Was there anything that you kept from your time? That sometimes you pull it out and like Halloween, you're just like, today I am Worf.
Actually, that was a good question. We had this question last year in Vegas, and no, I didn't take anything. Now, I've always, I don't know why, and I can't really explain it to any great satisfaction, but I just say that when it's over, it's done, and you kind of, okay. I did have the last headpiece that I used, and I had it in a box someplace, and in one of my moves, I think it got lost.
Somebody in a thrift store.
Well, that's okay. I wasn't. I'm sorry?
Somebody in a thrift store is going to be very happy one day.
I know, I'm sure.
Awesome, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, step on up. What's your name and what's your question?
Okay.
I'm Evan. Your character, Worf, was one of my favorite characters from The Next Generation. And also you did a fantastic job playing the Sandman in Santa Claus 3. I was wondering, which character did you enjoy playing more?
The Worf or the Sandman?
Yes.
Probably the Sandman. Kidding, I'm sorry. No, I think Worf was, although I got to tell you, I loved playing the psychologist on Castle. I had a great time with that, but between Worf and the Sandman, Worf.
Right, thank you.
You're welcome.
It's a really good question. Hey, step on up. What's your name and what's your question?
My name is Lars, and this might be a little different than usual. I've heard you're quite the pilot, actually, and I know you've flown some interesting and unusual aircraft. Are there any that you would like to fly at some point that you've not gotten a chance to, or any stories about it, one that you have that you'd like to share with the audience?
Yes, there was. I've flown just about everything in the frontline arsenal except for the F-15, and that's the one and the F-14. Those two came close to both of them, but didn't work out. Yeah, thank you. I have a lot of stories about aviation, just because I was very fortunate because the military loves Star Trek, and once they found out that I'm a pilot, the word just got around like wildfire, and they started inviting me to do stuff. And of course, they wanted me to come out and talk to the troops and sign autographs and, just kind of, be the celebrity kind of dude. And they'd always say the same thing. They'd call my publicist and they'd say, hi, we'd like to have Michael Dorn come out and talk to the troops on this particular day, blah, blah, blah. We can't pay him, but we can give him a ride in something. And I don't know how many times my publicist would go, Michael, what's an F-16? Or what's a B-1? God, So I was extremely fortunate. I loved aviation all my life. I love that kind of, the mystique of military pilots and fighter pilots and stuff like that. And I got to indulge it. It's very good. The one story that is a great story is that one of the last things I did was I went on an aircraft carrier in an F-18, which is great. Cat shots and stuff like that, like Top Gun for a whole afternoon. And I'm in the back seat, and it's just fantastic. On the way down there, it's from Lemoore Naval Air Station, which is about 400 miles, basically from there to where the carrier was off San Diego. So I flew up to Lemoore. We jumped in the F-18 and flew down there. And on the way down there, they had said, "Okay, Michael, you can fly." Great. And I'm thinking I'm, Tom Cruise or something. And I'm just flying and doing all this stuff. And he goes, "Michael, you can't do that." They're watching him on air traffic control. And if he's going, they're going to be going, "Okay, Brian, you got to land the airplane because, And he says, "You got it." And I'm like, yeah, who cares about you? And I'm just, And so finally we get down there and we come around to land the first time, and I've got my aviator shades on and I've got the helmet and oxygen mask, and I'm super cool. And we come in to land, and it's so violent, the landing, because you're going from 140 miles an hour to 0 within about 100 feet maybe. I mean, just stopping. And so I'm like, yeah, and he stops. And my glasses are all off on the side of my life. And it was crazy. So we did that a bunch of times, and we got out and had lunch and in the captain's quarters, and I went down and signed a bunch of autographs for the guys, and then, okay, we're going to jump back in the airplane. And he says, "Hey, Michael, do you want to stay around for night landings?" I said, "No." Nope. And so anyway, so we take off, and we get out of like 4 or 5 miles from the carrier, and he says, "Okay, you got the airplane, climb up to 33,000, something like that." So I'm get the airplane, and I'm climbing, and I'm like perfect. I'm so good. I get up to altitude, and I'm holding altitude and speed just right on within a couple of feet of my altitude and a couple of knots of, I'm just like, I can do this, come on, And I'm flying for about, I'd say an hour and a half, maybe even 2 hours, until I just happened to do something. I forgot what it was, and I moved the stick, and nothing happened. I'm saying, "Brian, what did you do?" And there's a switch in the front cockpit where you can turn off the back controls. And he turned them off. And he says, "Michael, I just couldn't take it anymore, Nothing in the back, But it was a great day. It was a great day. That was one of my favorites.
Thank you very much.
Awesome. That was a great story. Step on up. Hi, what's your name and what's your question?
My name's Katie. You mentioned Michael Westmore. I've been a huge fan of Face Off since it started, and he's been like a consultant. He goes in and he gives them advice and stuff. I don't know if you've ever seen the show.
I was on the show.
Oh, you were?
Yes, I was.
Oh, I should have known that. Sorry.
I remember his daughter when she was like...
She always has the best dresses. But anyway, my question is, for your time on Star Trek, from the start to the Nemesis film, was there any change in the way that the makeup was done to try to help save time?
Oops, did I? Oh, I'm sorry. Actually, the change in makeup was a couple of things. Michael Westmore always changed a little something with the makeup. Nothing really major, but just maybe the ridges were different and the nose and whatever the case. He just did that for his own sort of way of, letting the character grow. The time thing came in when the second season is my skin had gone bad. I mean, it was the makeup that they were using, they've used it for 70 years. And so it was actually burning my skin, and I was getting bad skin issues. And, and I actually had to go up to the producers, stopped filming not filming, I stopped the makeup process one day. And I went up to them and said, look, I love the show, I love the character, I love the people I work with, it's great, but I can't do it anymore. I mean, I want to have a career after this is over, and if my skin is messed up, then, and to their credit, they changed it, and in changing it, they actually took about a half an hour off the makeup time.
Oh, nice.
But the thing is, I would have done is, and I didn't do, which was silly, was I can grow a great beard. And I never thought until the last season, if you look at the last season of Next Generation, that's my beard. And I didn't think about it up until then, so, but yeah, that's the thing.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
All right, hi. What's your name and what's your question?
Hi, my name is Dexter. The question I had really was, your demeanor is so relaxed and so chill, and I know it's all about the acting and stuff.
No, actually, I'm high right now.
Oh.
A couple of little doobs backstage. I'm sorry.
I guess the real question is, how did you find your character's voice? I mean, Worf is such a stoic, at the same time, complex character. What thought process did you go through to find that voice of Worf?
It kind of relates back to what Gene Roddenberry asked. When I talked to Gene about about what he wanted from the character, it was he said, Michael, don't go by what you've seen or heard or any other performance. Make the character your own. And I went, cool, because that's to tell an actor that is like gold. And so I had snuck on the set after one makeup test or something like that, and I was standing there. Nobody knew who I was, so they weren't paying any attention to me. And I watched the other actors, and they were all so nice and so, yes, we're comrades and having a good time, and oh, yeah, that's great. Oh, Data, you're such a guard, and what do you think, number one? Well, Captain, I think, oh, yes, and, and all is really, really, and I went, okay, I'm going to do the opposite. And it's sort of like a kind of an acting choice that you make where you don't want to fit into the regular, you want to do something different. And I've always liked that about actors, so that's what I did. And I made him pissed off at everybody. I mean, somebody would ask him to pick up a pen, and he would go, pick it up yourself, and just angry, and and Mr. Worf, would you raise yours? Oh, yes, sir, and luckily the writers and the producers picked up on that, and they just took off. So, yeah. Thank you.
All right, hi. Step on up. What's your name? And of course, what is your question?
My name's Chris. I wanted to know what you think of all the episodes and arcs that the character of Worf has been through, which grew him the most?
That's a very good question. I think all the arcs were fairly normal arcs for characters, but the one that I thought was amazing was with his son, because the writers in general have a tendency to write happy endings, and Worf was a terrible father. I mean, he made some just huge mistakes, and I thought that arc was pretty brilliant from the very beginning on our show, and then they took it to Deep Space Nine, and they had a wonderful actor playing my son, and that was great, where he went from a terrible father to kind of working it out, or at least not being terrible, and I thought that was a great arc. Thank you.
All right. Hi. What's your name and what's your question?
Good afternoon. My name is Nathan. Thank you for being here with us all, Mr. Dorn.
Cool.
As someone mentioned previously, you were very instrumental in forming the concept of a Klingon for multiple generations now. That being the case, what do you think about the recent reimagining, or more to the point, people's reaction to it, of the Klingons?
Of which ones? Well, the
Klingons on Discovery.
on Discovery.
Yes, sir.
And I got to say, from what I've heard, the majority, or the overwhelming majority, love it. They've taken on an interesting challenge, which is creating something that actually already exists. And so I think that people have warmed up to it, just same as our show. They may not have liked the idea of Next Generation, but they've warmed up to Discovery. I thought, interestingly enough, a good question though is that I was asked to do the show early on by Brian Fuller when he was the producer, showrunner, and something happened along the way. I don't know what, but that didn't happen. But he showed me pictures of his idea of what the Klingon should look like. And it was totally different. I mean, it was not as severe, quite smooth, in a way. And the interesting thing is that the eyes were computer generated. So the eyes weren't human eyes, or they were something else. And it was pretty interesting. Of course, I was going, oh, great, more makeup. But yeah, so.
I appreciate your input, sir.
Thank you.
All right. Hi. What's your name and what's your question?
Hi, my name is Esri. So as you can tell, my parents are pretty good and big Trekkies.
So is that true?
Yes,
Oh,
my
wow.
name is Esri.
No, I know your name is Abby, but they got it from the.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, wow, cool.
So what is it like to be such a big part of not only like my parents and my grandparents' generation, but mine as well?
I feel like God. No, I'm kidding. I'm sorry. No, I mean it's for me. It's always been a thing of if somebody recognizes you for doing something, it's wonderful. The thing that I'm astounded by is how long this thing has been going on. And we were just kind of the middle part. And now CBS, as we all know, they're coming up with, they want to do 5 or 6 Star Trek shows on TV. I mean, that's like crazy. And that's where I think that, the whole question earlier about doing those episodes is that, I feel like Roger Federer or somebody, who like, okay, yeah, there's going to be a lot of good people, but nobody's going to do 270 episodes. So I feel pretty good about that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mm-hmm.
All right. Hey, man, step on up. What's your name and what is your question?
Sorry, I'm tall. Hello, my name is Trevor Talenko. Of course, love your run on Star Trek. For portraying a character for so long, I'm interested as to, have you ever responded to a situation or to somebody and had to step back and say, whoa, that sounded like Worf? And if so, have you ever used that to your advantage?
No, I never did that. No, I've never had to, first of all, it's interesting where the other actors are really approachable. Worf is not approachable. And so I think people kind of go, I don't know if this guy is Worf or not, so I better, so I've never had that, that thing. But, to my advantage, sure, when if I'm dating somebody or if I'm on a date and somebody says, talk to me like Worf. You gotta.
Oh, of course.
You gotta.
Thank you very much.
Would you like a little salt on that?
Hey, what's your name and what's your question?
Hello, my name's Michael. Of all the Star Treks you've been on, what is it like working with Anthony Brooks?
With Avery Brooks?
No, Anthony Brooks.
Anthony Brooks.
Who played Cisco?
Avery Brooks.
Cisco.
Avery Brooks.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. He's telling me. No, that's not him. Yeah, it's Avery. No, it's not. There's Anthony Montgomery, and then there's Avery Brooks. Avery, I liked Avery a lot. He was quirky and cryptic, but I got along with him famously, and he's a very intense actor, but I don't, for some reason, I've never had an issue with intense people. I just kind of treat them like I treat anybody else, and they seem to, gravitate to that. So, but he was really good. I like him, still like him. Thank you.
All right, we're gonna have enough time for about 3 more questions. I know we're gonna stop on the Legend of the Hidden Temple guy right there. All right, so what's your name and what's your question?
So my name's Emma. I'm a big fan of Star Trek. I had a question. What is your favorite blooper from the show?
There is a blooper that nobody has seen, and I hate to say this, but it was from First Contact. And it was a blooper where Patrick says, "Red alert, shields up," and Brent is supposed to be there talking. And Brent wasn't there for his off camera. And you see Patrick go, "Red alert, shields up." Brent is supposed to be here for his off-camera lines, but he has chosen not to, so we will just imagine him. He's off doing his usual boring and tedious work, One of my favorites. But there's a moment where we're in the transporter room and Jonathan and I cannot stop laughing. And I think you've seen that on the DVDs. It's just, but that's one of my favorites. Thank you.
All right, step on up. What's your name and what's your question?
Hi, my name is Sharmella. I love DS and I still watch it to this day. My question is, out of all of the animation characters that you did, which was your favorite?
I am Weasel.
Yes.
And this is going to be our last question. Hi, what's your name and what's your question?
Kapra! Thank you.
Down the hall to the right.
Speaking of Weasel, I'm not speaking of my own fan fiction theories here, but if by chance Worf and Weasel ever ran into each other, how would that conversation go? By any chance? Yeah, that's all I got.
That's it.
That's it? Nothing? Okay.
All right. So before
Thank you, everyone.
So do you have anything coming up that we can look forward to that you got coming out, or?
I just did a movie for Hulu called Agent 2, which is no makeup, which is great. And there was an Agent 1 that did really well for them, so they had the guy do an Agent 2, and I play a character who was kind of a futuristic Steve Jobs, who creates a system to kind of combat aliens who are trying to take over the planet. They're always trying to take over the planet. And then there's 2 little tiny movies, independent movies for my friends that I'm doing, and that's kind of it, which is great. I'm very happy. I haven't done a lot of conventions the first part of the year, and we're gearing up the second half. But I got to say something that's very interesting is that I touched on a little little bit before, is that it's amazing. When we did the last Star Trek movie, Nemesis, Paramount was done with us. I mean, they were getting rid of everything, the sets and stuff. We're done with this Star Trek. It's over. You know, I mean, it was really like cutting you off, cutting you out of the will. I mean, it was really something. And after J.J. Abrams did the first, or one of the Mission Impossibles, they said, "Oh, we love you, J.J. Oh, wonderful. 3 movies. We'll give you 3 movies. Whatever you want to do, let us know." And he goes, "I want to do a Star Trek." Seriously. And I'm sure they were like, "Huh?" And now they've hired Kurtzman and paid him a load of money to put on 5 or 6 different platforms of Star Trek. And as we know, like I said earlier, is that, you know, Patrick is in talks right now to come back, and it's just mind-boggling to me how long this has gone on, how many people it's affected. When we started, we'd go to the conventions, and the original actors would get "Oh, you know, my father, you know," and we're going like, yeah, you know. And now people are coming up to us like, "You know, my father loved you when he was 8 years old," you know? Wait a minute. And it's just amazing how it's gone on and how it's become bigger than anything, I think, than anything else in the world in terms of the entertainment and, you know, the shows that have been on and the range of things that are happening, you know. And the other crazy part is that these conventions, I mean, you're talking about, you know, there's some conventions we do where there's 30,000 people. And that wasn't like 15 years ago. This was like 2 years ago. So it's quite the experience.
Well, it's definitely a testament to your body of work, and
Thank you. Yeah.
You brought this character to life, and we all love it. And we would most likely love to see you again. So hopefully there'll be some talks to see you in the future once again.
That would be great. I would love it. Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, one more time, make some noise for Michael Dorn.